AI in business systems, smart integration versus dangerous assumptions. In this episode, John Tonkin from Brain in a Box navigates the promises and pitfalls of artificial intelligence in systems and development. While AI offers incredible capabilities for creating code and filling software gaps, John reveals why relying on it to build from scratch can be dangerous. You'll learn how AI is being used effectively for creating smart spreadsheets, discover why AI's generic outputs look polished but lack crucial context, and understand the critical elements it misses like tax treatments and cultural nuances. Learn how to harness AI's genuine strengths while avoiding the trap of assuming it understands your unique environment, and discover practical integration approaches. I'm your co-host Anthony Pearl, and this is the Systems from the Box podcast. Let's start unpacking.
John, this is an important conversation that I think we need to have, which is AI for systems. Is it a good thing or not? Because the rise of AI is absolutely here. People are jumping at it and using it. What's your take on how you use it within systems?
So we use AI a lot. We use it for creating code. So in addition to capturing systems, the process flow charts, whatever you want to think of it as, we also help our clients build props, and props are the checklists, the forms, and also the smart spreadsheets that do this and capture that and change that data into this and so on. And it's really good because it can fill in the gaps between what their software, their job management or whatever software they use does and what they need to be able to give to their clients or something along those lines. And what happens is that we use AI to give us that code. We then check it and so on, because I used to do a lot of coding myself. And so I'll go through and check it, because AI does not always produce the right outcome. So we know that it isn't a thinking person yet, but it's on the way towards thinking. And at the moment it's just machine learning. So it's done something so many times that it'll pick up what appears to be the right answer. But I love that sort of little bit down the bottom of the ChatGPT window where it says, I'm reading it now, ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important info, because I was using it earlier today. So AI is used in systems. AI is a great thing to spark ideas. So think about just about every part of your business. You'll see people talking about how wonderful it is. So we use it in marketing. We don't use it in sales, but we will be. And we're a Luddite in terms of use of AI, really, in terms of our systems, sadly. We use it very much for the tools we build for our clients, but, we don't use it there. So we are at that point where we're looking for ways we can implement it more effectively. And I think that's the approach that every business owner has to take. If you're not using it, you should be thinking, why aren't I using it? What could I use AI for that I'm not doing right now? And it's right there waiting to help. You just got to ask the right questions, give it the right prompts, and then be critical of the answers they give it, they give you, that the AI gives you. But there's so much fun that can come out of it, so much power that's in there. So there are a few mistakes, though, of course. There are some faults and things that people have in the way they look at AI, and I think these are just as interesting, because there's this assumption that AI can do everything. AI will help you. It'll let me go and kick sand in somebody's face, just like the ads on the back of the comic books used to do. So really what we want is to have that understanding that AI is fantastic if used properly. It's a horrible weapon if used badly. So one of the mistakes we have is that AI can create my business systems from scratch. And this is something I was talking to a business, no hints here or clues, but I was talking to a business about working with them on their systems. And straight away we had the comeback, well, what we're doing now, you'd be really pleased with this, John. What we're doing is to get AI to tell us how we do everything, how we manage everything, how we do our invoicing, and how we set up a new client, and how we do this, how we do that. And it filled me with dread to hear it, frankly, because I'm thinking, well, using AI to get ideas would be one thing, but if we just use that example of the invoice, there's so much in there that if you just told me how to do an invoice in Xero or MYOB or whatever, the AI will tell you, but it's not necessarily going to say, but you've got to check that you've got the right tax treatment, GST included, GST free, whatever else. It's not telling you necessarily to make sure that you are invoicing the correct entity because one business may have multiple entities. It's not telling you to check that you've used the right pricing tier in preparing that invoice, the data for the invoice. And so there's so much there. We assume that because it can tell you, here's what you need to do to create an invoice, that it knows your business, whereas it doesn't know your business. So it can't know your unique operating context, your culture and so on. It doesn't know the constraints that you are in business against, that you've got to manage. Doesn't know any of that. So it'll give you generic output. It'll look polished. It'll look really good, but it's lipstick on a pig for some things that it produces. It makes it look good, but it's not necessarily going to be good. It's going to lack relevance. It'll be accuracy questionable. It may not be give you a practical implementation steps for you. It may just be it works as a generic thing, but not really good for you. So you've got to have that idea.
Yeah, I mean, it really is important, isn't it, to understand the limitations. And particularly when it comes to your own systems, you have to understand that it's not going to be perfect. It's good as a guide, as you say, in many respects.
Yeah.
And I know certainly, if you talk to someone in the legal profession, they'll laugh at you if you use a document that's generated by an AI because there's way too many mistakes and things that are in there that leave you vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that with your systems at all. I think that's the important lesson, isn't it? That what an AI can guide you, but it doesn't know what is the human element and what is best for your business. It doesn't know the cultural understandings that you might have within a team, let alone where you might physically be located. There are so many variables that come into play that completely relying on AI is never going to be something that you can do.
No, it's just a critical thing. Like it doesn't know my business because we rarely train the AI to do exactly everything that our business does. We don't say we do this, and spend a half a year telling it everything about it. We can feed it document after document. We can tell it to ask questions of us so it understands the business, and it'll do that very, very well. And it'll produce a lot of good output, but it's not going to be something that you can necessarily rely upon. I'm sure that if we went in there and said, these are all the things that make jet engines work, to describe and make a design a jet engine for me, please. It may, and it may not, but I would imagine every bit as likely to create one that doesn't work as one that does work because it doesn't know all the things to test, all the critical parameters. It may not be thinking of metal fatigue or, how stressed the metals are or how strong they have to be and so on. Might design a beautiful one that could work. Anyway, who knows? But I think in systems, we've got that misunderstanding that, if we've got a flow chart there, it must be good. Because I'm looking at the flow chart and it's fantastic, and it looks really pretty and I can't see any gaps in the line. So it must be good, must be finished. And to me, it's only as good as the tested outcome. Did we actually tell the AI all the risks that are in that process that it has to manage when it's drafting that flow chart or that system for you? Did we tell it the best outcomes, the critical things that a client will expect when we give them the outcome of that process so that it can make sure that it tests the process against those outcomes? There's so much that is more than just, I want you to do this using this to create that. It's more than that. There's got to be so much more in there. A system isn't just a document. It includes the actual behaviors, responsibilities, the training, it's got all of that, the feedback loops. Anyone can draft a process, but implementing it and embedding it into the team's habits is a bit of a bigger job. So it requires human involvement. We need that in there.
Hey, John, I just want to take a break from the main part of the podcast for a moment so you can tell us a little bit more about Brain in a Box.
So Brain in a Box the idea started when I was working in corporate. I was working in a couple of major companies, internationals, and I decided that when I went out and started my first business in 2000, that it was going to use the same principles as I had done in corporate world to capture systems and to make them accessible to the team. But I thought, I've got to be able to do this for small business, small to medium business. And that's what we focus on. So we work with the business owner, with the team, to capture what the business does, and then to minimize the risk by going through and looking at all the risks that we have to manage, make sure we capture those and manage them effectively, and also to achieve the benefit. That's effectively what it is.
Yeah, and I think there's a keenness to use AI. I mean, I think that's the battle that you have here, isn't it? And there's a difference between using AI to produce your systems and using systems to understand where you might be able to bring AI into your business. That's a
Yeah.
different slant on things. And I think it's an important one, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because that's the positivity of AI, is that you can, if you've got the systems mapped out, as something we've talked about in a previous episode, you map out your systems properly, enables you to understand the gaps
Yeah.
and then understand where AI might be able to add some value, and
That's right.
AI in a broader sense of automation and other
Yes.
bits of technology.
Yeah. And that's where AI can come into its own. Like we've mapped something, we've got it there, we've got 3 adjacent processes, contiguous processes, and it comes in and says, you now say, could you please look at these 3 processes and tell me if there are any gaps? The typical risks or the typical errors we find are these: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The outcome must be tested against this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Can you see any issues or potential risks in the processes as they are mapped at the moment that could be overcome, that we could overcome, manually or whatever it might be? And then you're going to possibly get something that would be really useful there. AI can fast track systemization. There's no question of it, but it's not going to manage it to the point where you can hand it over and say, here, do that. You're still going to have to review it. You're still going to have to make sure that everything you wanted to be in there is in there.
Yeah, one of the keys is really that when you're looking at a business, is that, again, the AI is a good way of guiding you to see if there are things that you've missed, but then being thorough yourself in going through them all and then testing them and doing those things. Because I think the interesting thing about AI and technology in a broader sense, which leads to change in your business, is when is the right time to do it as well.
Hmm.
Because it's not just about jumping on the bandwagon immediately, but it's also not wanting to be the last one to jump on the bandwagon either. You've got to find
Yeah.
that sweet spot, don't you? And work out where that's going to come into play in your business and add real value.
Yeah. I think you've got to have a reason to do it. I mean, anyone can wake up and say, today I'm going to go and throw all my systems out the window and tell AI to write them for me and do it new. It wouldn't be a very clever thing. Nothing stops us from sort of using AI to test what we've done, to give us feedback. It'll give us insights we haven't come across or haven't decided for ourselves. But we really do have to make sure that we don't just hand it over to AI. We can't hand over anything without having it checked, tested. We've got to go right back to the fundamental principles in it to make sure that we actually do have a process that's going to be robust and going to meet our needs and the needs of our clients. So to me, it's great to use AI as an adjunct to doing the systems work, but not as a replacement for anything that somebody's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've looked at as well is that we've talked around, not relying on AI to write your systems, how you bring AI in to do things, but there's also, AI in terms of adding some value in how you actually produce things, or helping you and guiding you along the way with your systems. I think there's a difference between press a button, let's hope that AI tells us how we
Yeah.
should do it, versus using some of the technology to help record systems and to be able to, guide you along that way, to even point out as you're going through it,
Hmm.
maybe there's some efficiencies that we could grab here, because that's what some of the wonderful things about
Yep.
technology can see where you are losing efficiencies. I know I spoke to someone recently where they were looking at something that just sort of looked at in a particular manufacturing place, how much time was being spent on toilet breaks,
Yep.
and that it was clearly a case of people abusing some of that so-called toilet break time
Yep.
to go and take an actual break, and therefore, accumulated over a number of people over the week was suddenly a significant amount of time.
Yep.
And being able to use technology to be able to see that and see where there are breaks in your system is a huge advantage.
Yeah. Yep, it is. And you can take those things too far, as one of our leading shopping chains discovered. But there are so many things where there's an AI tool or an AI or a tool that isn't AI, but which AI can point to tell us how to get benefits that we aren't seeing normally. And I think there are, we've got to manage the risks in business. The whole reason we can be in business is because we manage the risks more effectively than our competitors. So if we can have AI help us to understand what those risks are from its general, accumulated knowledge across all the large language model, if we can have it help us understand what we could do to streamline or to fine tune our process to make it more effective, then we can get some value out of it. We can get some real value out of it. We can get it to draft something and highlight the errors and areas where we need to work harder on it and so on like that. But it isn't necessarily going to have a structured audit relevant to our business in there. They're going to be general risks. They're going to be generic benefits. They're going to be generic bits of software it might suggest and so on. It's not going to be asking what risk does this manage? What benefits does this particular process provide? You risk building a non-compliant system if you only rely upon AI helping you in creating it for you.
So, John, let's wrap up this discussion on AI, because we could probably talk for hours about it because there's so much involved in it. But I want to bring it back to the beginning question and ask where you sort of see it at the moment and where you see it going. AI for systems, good thing, bad thing? What's the view?
I think AI for systems is a fantastic thing, and you just have to treat it very carefully. You've got to be using it with your eyes wide open. You have to say, all right, treat it the same way as if your 12-year-old child had come up and said, Daddy, I've mapped how you do this, how this system works. You'd be going through and you're looking for all the things that it does well. You're looking for all the things that it may not have done well. You're testing everything you can see to make sure that it manages all the risks and achieves all the benefits that you and your team understand. But it definitely needs to be, it can speed up things. It can put a little angle on the table that you didn't see before. It can ask a question that, wow, that's an interesting thing. I never thought of that. Very important point, though. We've got to have that in there. But really, if I were wrapping it up, I would say, we can use AI to systemize, but only to assist with the systemization. You can't use it at this stage, I would say, definitely not, to say, here's how you run your business. You might use it to say, here's what I should be covering in my business, what systems should be included, but not exactly how to define them, how they work for your business. There's too much that's unique to you and your business in your country, in your area, your sector, your industry, whatever else, that need to be created by you. That's my view at the moment, certainly. Can't wait till it changes.
Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're tuned to. Thank you for listening to the Systems from the Box podcast featuring John Tonkin from Brain in a Box. Details on how to contact John and his team are in the show notes, along with other valuable links you don't want to miss. This podcast is produced by Podcast Done For You. I'm Anthony Pearl. We look forward to your company on the next episode.